Good evening, golf friends, and welcome to Tuesday Traces. I'm always excited to host Tuesday Traces, but tonight is definitely a special 49th episode. 49 is one of my most favorite numbers, so tonight is super special. We are hosting live from the Butch Harmon Golf Academy at the Floridian, and it is by far, and I mean by far, the most gorgeous golf academy that my team and I have ever seen. I told them that a couple of weeks ago. I don't know that they believe me. Their jaws were on the floor when they walked in here 2 days ago. In addition to this amazing space, I'm surrounded by some of the most knowledgeable, successful golf professionals / pressure mat experts in the industry. Besides the space and these pros, we are going to see some of the best tour player traces tonight, like Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Siwoo Kim, Adam Scott, and Matt Wolff, and maybe another special beefy surprise at the end. You'll know what I mean later. My team and I have been here for our V1 Sports Summer Software Summit the past 2 days. We have had the most fun educating the golf pros in this community and building relationships with everyone that joined us. It was so much fun. Okay, about tonight, welcome to all of you, the hundreds of you that have registered and joined us via our Zoom webinar link. And welcome to all the folks tuning into the V1 Sports Facebook Live channel. Please, please, please do not hesitate to ask questions throughout the night. We will catch the Facebook questions and we will catch the questions in the chat window. We will send the good questions through the experts. And like I said earlier, Kelly, who loves speaking in front of people, she's going to take all the silly questions. The recording of tonight's webinar will be available on the V1 Sports YouTube channel in a few days after Anna edits. If you registered on the Zoom, you'll automatically get a link emailed to you. If you don't see the link, all of our recordings are saved on our YouTube channel in a playlist called Tuesday Traces. They're all there. You can go check them out. All right, a little bit about V1 Sports, my amazing company. V1 Sports is a 26-year-old company and the leader in delivering video analysis instruction solutions and ground force technologies to athletes and coaches around the world. In those 26 years, we are proud to have supported over 4 million golf lessons and 10,000 V1 affiliated golf coaches. I got to hang out with some of them today. John Hughes is here. He's been with us for 19 years. It was really cool. We are passionate about supporting your golf and baseball businesses. I am Mandy Monsey, Southeast Regional Sales Manager for V1 Sports. Over here behind me, I've got Chip Carell, the Northeast Regional Sales Manager and PGA Pro for 19 years. And of course, over there behind the desk is my tornado twin and my dear friend, Kelly Hurst, our Director of Marketing. How about that? A round of applause for the team. I love it. Okay. And about our host, this brings me to our host, the most important people. In 2011, Ryan Crysler was named Senior Instructor at the Butch Harmon Academy. He is highly regarded Titleist Performance Institute certified golf-free professional and club fitter, ranked on the Golf Digest Best Teachers in Florida list for 2017-18 and 2019-20. Ryan has assisted tour professionals Ken Duke, Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, Kyle Stanley, Ricky Fowler, and Curtis Strange. Ryan currently coaches European Senior Tour player Barry Lane, PGA Tour development players, and local high school, district, regional, and multiple state champions. We've watched him coach today. They're all rock stars, and he's amazing. Ryan graduated in 1999 with 2 undergraduate degrees in political science and psychology from SMU. And Ryan has 2 beautiful young kiddos and another little boy on the way. Ryan, thank you so much for sharing your academy for V1 Sports Summer Software Summit and for joining us tonight and for letting us dive into your V1 Pro traces. Thank you for letting us be here.
How's it sound? Are we good?
Yep.
Can you hear Jake?
Yeah.
I'm going to introduce Jake. I just wanted to say thank you.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to take that back.
Perfect.
Finish my little deal.
Yes.
Okay, also joining us is the infamous Jake Thurm, my buddy and our V1 Sports Pressure Mat partner expert. Jake has formerly, I keep saying it, been named one of the best young teachers in America. I only say that because he's too old to win it. He does look young, but I'm a little older. That's the only dig I can get. Although I'm sure if he were under 40, he would be winning that as well. Okay. He is highly regarded in Chicagoland golf circles. Jake is the Midwest director for the USA Junior National Golf Team and director of the Nike Junior Golf Camp at Fresh Meadow Golf Club in Hillside. He also operates golf schools at Ruffled Feathers Golf Club in Lamont and Athletico in Oak Brook. Jake has the largest Nike Junior Golf Camp and the largest USA Junior Golf Team in the country. He's definitely an expert on utilizing ground force technology in golf instruction. There is no one that has put more tour players on the pressure mat during tour events than Jake. We also have an ongoing bet that we travel with our pressure mat more than each other. I think I'm winning because I put mine on a plane here. Did you bring your pressure mat with you?
Are you like full, like tired?
Maybe so, because I traveled a lot during COVID. Okay, one more group that we want to talk about and welcome to the team today. We are excited to welcome Black Cat Ventures to our team. Black Cat Ventures is the golf technology fund founded by Michael Jordan and managed by his partners Ken Wayand and Darren May, the GM and golf coach at the Grove 23, just down the street. They will be investors and collaborators in helping V1 bring new products and services to market. V1 Sports is the first company in which Black Cat Ventures has chosen to invest. I think that's really special. Okay, a little bit about where we are, and then I'll stop talking and we can get into the good stuff. There are 3 bays in this golf academy. The bay over there is a putting studio. It's fantastic. We've been playing at it all day. They have 6 cameras. They're all 67 frames per second cameras. We put those in a couple weeks ago. The bay that we're sitting in now, that you're going to see in a minute, has got 4 240 cameras, and it's an overhead face on down the line and lefty or behind view. The bay to the back of me is Claude's bay, and that's the bay that these videos were filmed in. And I just want to point out that that bay has not had camera upgrades. So the videos that you will see tonight have been filmed with old cameras. What?
But it will.
It will. It will be upgraded in a few weeks when I come back down with new cameras. We just ran out of time this week. So yes, we will be upgrading those as well. And the traces we capture from here on out will be amazing. Okay, so since y'all are tired of hearing me talk, we're going to do some screen shares and look at actual tour traces from some really special people. Before I go, if you'd like more information or if you have questions, put them in the chat and the girls will help us get them to the pros. Start with Brooks? Okay. So Jake and Ryan are over there, and we're gonna do some screen shares. We're gonna start with a little. Yeah. I'm gonna move the speaker and stop talking. You guys.
How's the audio? Stays right there. We're good?
Are you hearing us? Okay. Okay.
That's right. So before we begin, I just want to say this is not my academy, right? This is the Butch Harmon Floridian Academy. I've been very thankful to have met Claude in 2005, and through my relationship with TPI, Dave and Greg, and Tyler's. No problem with Claude, and ever since 2005, Claude and I have been working together a little bit. We went to Dubai for a little bit, but we started here in 2011, and it's been basically, if you're an instructor like me, just to nobody from Austin, Texas, this is your dream come true, right? This is where you want to be with all these tour players, all the Harmon players. So I just want to make sure that's clear, that I'm very grateful and thankful that Butch, Jim Crane, our owner, Claude, invited me to this party here at Butch Harmon Floridian, where I could be part of guys like Brooks and Dustin Johnson and Ricky Fowler and lots of other players we've taught in the past, and hopefully some great players in the future.
Yeah.
So there you go. I'm gonna get that out there. Thank you, Butch. Thank you, Claude. Appreciate it. And thank you, Mr. Crane, as well. So earlier today, me and Jake were part of the first ever kind of one instructor summit.
Yeah.
I want to make sure it's called like Master Instructor Summit. I want to make sure that the words right.
We're showing everybody the software that V1 is offering, in not only for this year, but in 2022.
Right.
And then we had some great instructors from all around the country and to achieve their master certification over the past 2 days. So it's been a great couple of days here.
Yep. And also, just to clarify, like he is the body track expert.
Yeah.
He is the man, right? I'm a TPI guy, and I've learned a lot from him just the past day or so. Learning all the traces he's come up with, or he's recorded, and all the ways he teaches people based on their tricks. So
I appreciate that. Again, I always say that I don't know more. I don't know everything. I just measure everything.
Right.
And I'm always open to seeing something new as long as it's achieving results. I'm ultimately, hopefully, what people get from me is I'm good with everything, and I'm open to learning anything, especially from the thoroughbreds we're about to look at here.
Yeah.
So.
And Chip, if you could bring up the just the first version, sorry, the injured version of Brooks. Yeah.
You guys bring this a little further.
Sure.
Just
Sure.
want to provide a little context before we go to the good Brooks. Yeah. All right, cool. So last July 27th, so Claude Harmon had coached Brooks at that point last year, and I was privileged to be a part of the session that they had out here that hot day in July. And obviously last year during the COVID pandemic, schedule was off, things were happening. Brooks was getting ready to gear up, and he's been here a lot longer than he usually is. I would say Brooks is a good ball hitter, but he's not out there hitting balls, 6 hours a day. It's maybe 2 hours max, maybe. And Brooks is a great guy. And we came in here, he was struggling. Claude was trying to find out the real story, if you will. And we put him on the body track, and we came up with the truth in this trace. So just to provide a little context for guys who may not know the body track and the traces, Jake, if you can kind of explain maybe what this particular trace would mean.
Sure.
Then we can kind of go provide a little context about what Brooks does and what he does well.
Well, the V1 pressure mat powered by Body Track, the original origin of it was a medical company out of Canada. So they would use it for bedridden patients, wheelchair covers, so on and so forth. So the reason I'm saying this is the actual origins for the Body Track, again, the V1 pressure mat, is in medical. So you can actually see restrictions throughout someone's motion. Now, the restrictions might just be kind of their physical makeup, but you had already had history with Brooks ever since he was a college player. So you were pretty sure you knew what you were seeing. So when you saw the COP trace, which we'll see up here, you were seeing a restriction through impact that you had not seen before. And obviously something had to be done because he wasn't achieving results. Like you said, his ball flight was all over. Something that you might want to tell him is what you shared earlier, how he lines up the TrackMan and what his numbers are. Again, 50 in a row with 6 irons. And
so here's a little more context. When you're working with a guy like Brooks, so a top 5 player in the world, right? You can tell by the way that ball sounds, the way that ball flights, that this guy's got something, right? And what I mean by that is, Brooks, when I worked with Brooks a little bit, maybe testing some clubs, setting up TrackMan, he was very adamant about where that TrackMan was lined up. Because I'm telling you, wherever that thing was lined up, his face, for you TrackMan guys, was 0, right directly at that target. Just about every time, especially when he was swinging really good. And his path would be a little bit left, maybe 2.5, 2, right around there. It's kind of where he lives. And that basically produced this kind of power fade every time. And on this particular day, which I just remember very succinctly, is that he was not at his best. And it had been a while with him hitting balls, and Claude as his coach at the time, kind of going back in some different thoughts. And then Claude just brought him in. And I'm not sure how many pressure traces we had done before, but we had this happening. And it's, what'd you call this particular trace?
Well, typically when he played his best, because you showed me some of the best traces when he is winning major championships, he was more of a linear trace, which was the center of pressure going back and through. And this one was a little bit of a backup trace through impact.
Can you switch back to the first trace from January? That one?
Yeah, just as a comparison.
Just so they can see a comparison. Perfect.
Slide that out there, Chip. Chip, can we slide the center of pressure charts out?
Oh, these are because these were shot. Okay. Can you just compare there and then bring it in?
There we go.
So just if you're laying the body track, you can kind of see basically straight lines right there. All right.
Yeah.
Perfect. You can basically see some straight lines here. This is when Brooks is at his best. Right. So it goes back to that right arch, goes through to his left arch. right? And if you can switch back to this particular day in July last year, and Jake can help us with this.
Sure.
Come on. Just go back to July. Yeah, the one we had up earlier. There you go. Trace is different, right? The lines are different. So after Claude had Brooks hitting balls for a while, we just couldn't figure out per se what the root cause was. And Claude smartly got him on the body track, and we started seeing a different pattern. And this is something you really couldn't see with your naked eye.
See, this is what I find so interesting. You've got a grown man, but you had him since he was a college player. You know his game, you know his ball flight, you know his movements. You're seeing it on video, and almost
he was not the Brooks I know, right?
Yeah, and yet it wasn't the ball flight, and yet the video to both of you looked more similar than it did different.
Yep.
Right? Until you got it on the body track, and then it was absolutely stark differences on there. So
right.
If you want to go ahead and play it.
Right. Just explain the motion here.
Sure. So he's loading similarly. So if we go into his backswing, it's this one is more similar. And again, for all the V1 pressure mat owners, just so you know, his heels are at the top and his toes are at the bottom. So he's loading into, again, a little bit into the toe, braking there. Then it's going to move towards the heel with the center of pressure in transition there, loading about 80 back, which is a typical number that we see. So go ahead and put him through transition. There you go. So he goes forward into the lead side. And again, this is something that I will say is that all elite level players, Brooks is no different, get pressure into the lead side sooner rather than later. All poorer players, unfortunately, are a little slow with their center of pressure. So right there, he's at about 68% forward, a tiny bit in the toe. And then we're going to see the center of pressure back up through impact back towards the trail side. And you referred to this as a reverse pivot. And the most important thing is, so there you see at about impact, 60% on the trail side. So you're seeing that you measured him, and I've always called swing banking. You measured him when he's playing his best, and you measured him when he's saying, what's going on? The ball's going everywhere. And all you did was compare the data against what he does when he plays his best against when he was currently struggling, and noted the difference. And this was the biggest difference here.
Right. And so we kind of knew he had a knee issue. We didn't know probably the severity of the knee issue, right? And
well, it's kind of interesting. He didn't tell that. He didn't divulge that information when he came in first, did he?
It was hurting. Basically, it was hurting. And with a great professional athlete like Brooks, this is what you typically find. You find guys that will plow through pain and not care and get the job done. In this case, it wasn't quite the Brooks that we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
And so what Claude did basically is we finally grilled him. We got a real good indication that this is actually a pretty big deal, right? This is preventing him from being the Brooks that we know in 2019, 2018, was winning majors, right? 4 out of 6 or whatever it was, right? And so
before the world knew about Brooks's injury to his knee, you measured it with the V1 pressure mat and got it out of him.
I think that's about right.
Yeah.
Right. Don't quote me on the sequence of events, but that's about right.
Yeah.
Right? And so,
I have a question about the strikes.
Sure.
Real quick. Which foot is his right foot and his left foot?
left foot, right foot.
But on the trace.
Yeah.
Left foot, right foot.
Okay, and I'm asking that question. I know the answer to that question.
Right.
But
Good,
I'm
good people.
asking that question for the audience because there's 2 different ways to look at this. And when you guys say knee and toe, I want to make sure we're talking about the same thing based on
Right.
that match.
So what they do here at the academy, I think this is fine. I think this is great because a lot of the times that they video the body track using the D1 Professional is that they flip the video so that way the center of pressure moves in the direction that the player is swinging as they view it. And that's an excellent way of doing it.
Yeah. I think
And you have that option.
just from that player's perspective, they see the ball going out their studio and they see their pressure trace kind of following that
Right.
ball flight. And that makes a little more sense to me. I think the player as well, just from this perspective. Maybe from a perspective where the TV is on the ground, might be a little different. But I think forward facing, it's a little bit easier for them to understand. But back to Brooks, I mean, Claude basically said, you know, we got to open up that left side. And Claude's also a TPI professional as well. He understands how the body produces the swing style that's right for Brooks. And, you know, Brooks probably has a little history of a neck issue, a little bit of a shoulder issue, and a little bit of a hip issue. He's always been a little bit tight in those areas. Still pretty efficient, right? And we just had to open up his left hip a little bit. And I think, you know, he still played in pain for that rest of the season. And maybe if someone could bring up the results from kind of August on last year, wasn't that bad, right? Wasn't that bad. He is Brooks. And that's the type of player he is, right? But one little difference like that with body track, you can really, from a coaching perspective, you can really identify something that the player may not realize is making a difference in their game.
I know a suggestion that you made when he was on the pressure mat there was that he should toe out his lead foot to give him a little bit more rotation.
It's probably a little more square in this one.
Right.
Right. So that's kind of his typical setup. And Claude asked him just to kind of rotate that whole left leg a little bit, rotate that foot out, right? And that just helps relieve a little tension in that left hip, and hopefully you can clear a little bit better.
Yeah, it also takes a little pressure off that knee.
Right.
What I love, if we've got a time, I know that there's Brooks drills in here.
Yep.
So even though we're looking at when he was winning major championships and when he was nursing an injury, the thing that I figured out we were looking at these drills, and I go, you know what? That was Ryan and that was Claude taking him through a couple of drills to produce. To produce. So here we go. Beautiful.
Yes,
So there was two drills that you did with him. One that didn't even involve a ball. So you had a top 5 player in the world, and you took the golf ball away from him and made him make the motion first.
Right.
I think that's
Claude
interesting.
Claude does a lot. I mean, it's really good to take away that golf ball, because for some reason, for any golfer, that golf ball just creates a lot of different pressure or anxiety or tension, whatever it is. And it can change a signature, or it can change a kinematic sequence, or can change video.
And you can see that this was all the same date, same outfit, same dates if you can't see that, but that the center of pressure lost the backup to the trail side. And Chip, if you could put him at impact right there, this is actually after a couple of the drills. So if you recall, 60% on the trail side at impact, again, maybe protecting the knee, so to speak, in his mind. And then now he's 70 forward and obviously a whole lot linear. And that pattern of trace is more similar to when he was winning majors and playing his best.
That's right.
That's just good coaching right there. So.
Yeah, so I was definitely privileged to be part of that day in July. Typically, the Floridian is closed, and we have a lot of guys like Brooks and DJ come in during the summer, because I'm always teaching. I'm never turned off, right? So we're always going. And it's great to be a part of that day and see the changes that body track can identify, for sure, that you really couldn't identify with maybe no other technology, right? So it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I love the fact that you're measuring something that can't be seen, and that the fact that a player that you guys know so well, that Claude knows so well, almost looks identical on video, but in terms of his interaction with the ground, it's totally different. It looks like a totally different player right now. And that's where your answers lies. Let's move on to a different player.
You DJ?
Yeah, I've heard of him. I've heard of him, yeah.
I've heard of him when I walked through the front lobby. So in the front lobby of his academy, there's a bunch of tour pictures and
a lot of pictures of
trophies
DJ.
and stuff. It's pretty cool. DJ's definitely up there.
Yeah.
So don't wins.
All right, so a couple things here first. So Claude is currently with DJ. That's why he's not here tonight, because of course he's defending his title this week, right?
Right.
So that's very cool. And this is a particular iron trace. It's about 4 years old, 3.5.
Now, what iron do you think he's using here? Is that like a 9, or what do you think?
Yeah, I'm guessing
Wedge?
8, 9,
8 or
something like that, right?
Good.
And so first off, I would say DJ is not technical at all. So DJ is not worried about his body track trace per se. But for tonight, he is the star of the show, right? And I think one thing that kind of I discovered today for sure, and I didn't quite realize until you kind of put it succinctly today in today's education seminar,
Yeah.
is that for sure there are different traces from driver to wedge, right? Or driver to short game, right? I kind of figured that for sure.
Yeah.
But they're also, but I was thinking maybe it's the same pattern, maybe a little smaller or shorter version, right? But sometimes I think DJ is probably going to be a good case. You can have one particular trace with the driver and maybe another particular trace with an iron, right?
Yeah.
And so, as the expert here in traces, can you just give us a little bit of a
Sure.
teach on this particular trace
Sure.
with kind of a short iron?
And I get that question all the time. Do great players, and I'm excited to see DJ's trace as much as you guys are at home. Do great players show a uniform trace pattern throughout the whole bag? The answer is no. I'm open to that being the case, but I've never seen that be the case. Usually they're very good with one part of the bag and struggle with the other. And that's when the part of the bag that they're good gets into the part of the bag that they're struggling with. And I would actually tell you, two drives aren't created equal, because you could have a get it in a fairway drive, right? And that will have it'll have a similar pattern of trace, but it won't be exact as the all-out bomb and attack angle and launching up the lead side. It has a lot to do with it. So it's not even just the club. It actually is the type of shot the player is trying to hit that you see differences in traces. So don't get attached to one trace. They're all good. This actually, and you said this is a pretty unique trace. And once I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's a money trace. So again, this chart is inverted. These are his toes down here. That's his heels up there. So if we can go ahead and send him back. So he's going to load kind of in the midfoot. And then this is the trace that if you guys have gone on YouTube or something and seen Emiliano Grillo that I got to spend some time with a few years ago, this is a very similar trace pattern where he, at or near the top of the swing, starts getting into the trail heel there. And what he's going to do is, normally I would say stay under the crosshairs, but in this regard, he's going to stay above the crosshairs. So the pressure is going to go from his trail heel closer more towards his lead heel. So we'll send him forward there. And I'm going to tell you why in a second. I think that this is excellent. So there he is. He's at almost peak forward with that pressure. Okay. And then go ahead and bring him all the way into impact. Okay. So he's 74% in his lead heel. So basically the center of pressure went from his trail heel to his lead heel. Those that out there that are teaching golfers that struggle with early extension, you need to look at Dustin Johnson's iron trace here, because when the center of pressure goes from the trail heel to the lead heel, that's going to be able to allow the player to counterbalance, stay in their posture and their tilts, and be able to rotate. So TPI would call that dynamic posture. It's an excellent, obviously, if you didn't know, it's an excellent trace for an iron swing. And again, a player demonstrating this trace doesn't struggle with early extension typically. And he's pretty still bowed forward with his trail side down and rotated open. And there's a lot to learn from that for a lot of amateurs.
Yeah, you can see a lot of things that DJ works on. It's very simple, right? And I think one of the biggest things that I've seen Claude and DJ work on is just alignment and rotation. I think if DJ gets in trouble a little bit, it's because he's slowing down, right? So he's maybe a little bit too finessey, a little bit too slow with his body. Probably club drops in a little bit too inside out. Right?
Well, the Harmon family's always been pretty adamant that when he came like this, that was going to stay.
Right.
So you want to match that flexion. So and if you're watching DJ, not only does he flex at the top, but he has transitional flexion. So he flexes further in transition. You want to match that up with a fair bit of rotation.
Right. So you see that with very few or very many successful golfers with that move.
Yeah.
So I think David Duval is a good example. Fully open, basically, at impact, almost looking at the target, right? And there's probably a few LPGA girls and probably a few players right now currently that I can't think at the top of my head because I'm on TV. I'm nervous. DJ is a great example.
We have a great question.
Okay, yeah.
Do you guys mind if I interrupt you?
No.
So
Yeah.
they're asking about what dynamic versus velocity data.
Okay.
I'll say that we have the velocity chart up there. It's software needs to be updated that today to be able to update software.
No worries.
So we're going to talk about velocity
Still
chart.
produces champions.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you could talk about that other graph up there.
That's right.
Sure.
Take it away, Jake.
Sure. So if we want to I always recommend on the V1 Pro for the V1 pressure mat to set impact, which I believe we already did. Did we set it? Yes, we did. All right, beautiful. So if we can back that up, and again, remember these charts are flipped. So if you're wondering why DJ's linear speed is more, and that's what that's measuring, lateral speed is under instead of above. It's actually because it's flipped. So go ahead and send that through, and just go to the peak lateral, please. Perfect. So this is when he would be moving his absolute fastest in a lateral state. And then you can see it dissipates and goes back to the median or the midline there. And that's where, so basically he's breaking his lateral motion there. And now he's going to move into more of a pure rotational vertical motion. So I get this question a lot. There's so many amateurs who were told to get laterally towards the target, but that wasn't the lesson for the rest of your life. Right. That was probably a good lesson when you used to slice the ball or swing across it to get your center of mass moving towards the target. Again, you can already see that he's shifting his pressure forward before the completion of his backswing. That is a hallmark of elite level golf, and his peak lateral velocity. You can see he's transitioned the club a few inches there. That will then dissipate. And this is what allows him to, if we want to step it forward, this is what allows him to decelerate that segment, pelvis segment, which obviously the deceleration, it's so interesting from the top to the bottom. They get to their peak speeds in terms of lateral, rotational, and vertical, and then they get it to negative by the time it gets to impact to impart all the speed in the club head, especially in speed creation with the driver. Again, this is just an 8-iron right here, but you can still see that his peak lateral speed is well before impact. There's a lot of club level players that their peak lateral speed is at impact. And on the V chart, you can see that they're sliding past the ball. A lot of times these players really struggle with club path and swing direction, block and hook scenario.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So
I want to say one more thing, only because I got so many questions on this, and you get your train of thought, and then players and coaches in the crowd, they all noticed that Dustin was looking ahead of the golf ball, so you can see his eyes looking that way. I'll ask you this because they asked you this. Did he come that way? Or did you guys tell him that? Or is this a drill and he just liked it?
I'm pretty sure he comes that way. The harder he rotates, the better. However, he has a little different signature swing with his driver, maybe three-wood, maybe longer irons, where the head stays down just a little bit longer. And by that probably produces just a little bit more snap and power. But for sure, with irons, he is always rotating. And it's definitely a good idea if you have a limitation. I'm not saying he does. I mean, DJ has like a perfect screen, I bet. Super strong, fully mobile in all the right places. Yeah. But if you have a player that maybe has a limited neck or mid back, something like this with DJ helping the player go ahead and look at the target instead of looking at the ball, it helps them rotate a little bit better because that head weighs a significant amount, right? And it's always going to be pulling you back wherever your mass is, right? So if you're rotating it and letting it go, it can definitely help you through impact.
So his, what a lot of instructors out there might call neck tilts, his neck tilts are different based on the clubs that he used, driver and iron. Right. That's fascinating. Right. I don't know why everybody wants to be the same. I mean, it's not the same golf club. Right.
Right. Well, cool. How we doing on time? Are we doing good?
We're doing so good. You guys are doing great.
Adam Scott? Or is there any questions? You gotta look at it.
We have a bunch of questions.
Okay.
Let me answer some questions here. Let me answer a few questions. So Paul Woodbury would love this, all of this, these comments about the way the mat is situated. Paul Woodbury will tell you if you're using level, just rotating mat 180 degrees. And John, please email me your question, John Vermeer. And let's see, Studio Software doesn't look like anything that I have. We are looking at Studio Software. We're looking at old Studio Software actually, which is why I only have the 2 graphs. In a few weeks when I come update that with 3rd graph. But yes, the software will look slightly different in the mobile app. In order, just so you know, you do have all three graphs. In order to see them in the mobile app, just tap the graph and it will switch. The reason that you only see one is because the iPad has such small real estate. I'm going to show you one graph at a time so you can see the video and sync with pressure. But just tap the pressure graph and you'll fly over to linear velocity or vertical force. They're sending awesome explanation on DJ. Good job,
Nice.
guys.
Yeah. No.
And do you have a DJ with driver to see the difference?
Haha.
We do.
Not on the pressure.
We don't have one in the back.
It's actually available in V1 Pro as a model swing. We found it earlier and we had a look at it. We do not have that with pressure. So if you look in your V1 Pro, you down to the models. DJ.
Try to get that sometime soon.
Yeah.
There's a baseline.
Love to take it.
Right.
Okay, you guys have all the questions. If you want to move on to another tour player.
Who doesn't love Adam Scott?
Who doesn't love Adam
Ladies
Scott?
love Adam Scott. Okay.
I love Adam Scott.
Go ahead, take it
So
away.
I have been very privileged, obviously, to hang out with Adam Scott. He comes here almost every year before the Masters, spends about a week here. He's grinding, getting ready for the majors. One thing that's really cool with Adam Scott is that he doesn't play 35 events a year. He loves to practice. And he was here before the Masters this year. I had some time with him, watching him practice. And if you think his swing is as good as it looks on video, you can't imagine how good it really is in person. And he hits this beautiful little small draw, and it's just amazing. And really, really a great privilege to watch him practice. And with Adam Scott, I think from a trace perspective, it totally makes sense that it's pretty kind of linear or lateral, as Jake would say it, right? And it's pretty efficient, right? He's not only one of probably a great model for body track, but he's also a great model for TPI and kinematic sequence. His swing is just about perfect. It looks perfect, works perfectly, and by last week, he was in that playoff. Freaking missed that part, but we also had Siwoo in that playoff too, which is pretty fun, great for TV. But if we take it through his swing and sequence here, I'm guessing it's around a 5-iron, 6-iron, something like that, and it's pretty much poetry in motion, right?
Yeah, it's the flow of the trace really that's so pretty. So again, I have no attachment to a trace or anything in particular. I've seen them all win. I've seen them all make money. But there's a lot of you out there that really love a linear trace. So here you go. The thing that's, when I talk about the flow of the trace, it's the uninterrupted nature of the center of pressure movement. So he loads back, transitions, and then he's going to go actually slightly from that lead toe into that straight across, which would be right into the heel, right like that. It's beautiful. So when you see a linear trace that is as clean as this, just know that the player, and again, it fits his pattern, just know that the player is blending maybe seamlessly a lateral, a rotational, and a vertical component to create that center of pressure.
Yeah, it's just like
Yeah, straight across.
straight across.
Yeah.
I want to watch it over and bring it from the head. It's so beautiful. It's so good.
So he's just one of those guys that not only looks good but measures good. What's his TrackMan numbers like? Because you talked about Brooks, how good that was.
Actually, I don't know his particular TrackMan numbers.
Okay.
We haven't had him on our TrackMan in person, but you can definitely guess.
Yeah.
It's probably 310 carry with driver.
Yeah.
And he's smoothing it out there. I'm
Yeah.
guessing it's probably 3 or 4 right with a 0 face, maybe 1 or 2 face.
That doesn't look like he's trying too hard. That's for sure. And this gets into the whole thing that we always talk about is good movers, good players. And it's so great when good movers are good players.
Right.
So he's both. He would be a coaching dream. And I know that you said he's going to be forever part of the Harmon family.
Yeah, for sure. He's known Claude probably since he was in college, UNLV days, and he's worked with Butch probably. You guys, probably, I'm not sure when he was in college, probably early 90s.
Yeah, UNLV, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I think, you cannot not like Adam Scott, a guy like Adam Scott. Really a personable guy.
I know my wife does.
Very nice.
All right.
Yeah, I have a question about from the audience. A great question. You guys just whoever, and really might try this question, but do you think that single leg clubs make pressure trace analysis between clubs? So
That's a great question.
Isn't that a great question?
That is a great question. I could only speculate a guess. I'm sure you have opinions on this as well. I have not measured this. This is a Mike Shy question.
Absolutely.
This is one guy we're talking about.
Right. So we are talking, and maybe many Mike Shy students, but because I would imagine, and again, I've actually have you had Bryson's clubs in your hands?
Oh, yeah.
I have too. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's only the irons that are the same length, because once he gets to the hybrids in the woods and whatever he's putting in there in the driver, those are more traditional. I would imagine the pattern, not necessarily in the short game, we're talking full swing. I would imagine that trace pattern would be more similar with those irons that are all the same length and lie angle too, right?
Yep.
So I would imagine they're more similar than they're different. With that said, when he's hitting a different type of shot, just because his clubs are more similar, then you would see the differences in the trace pattern, say in a flighted wedge or an abbreviated trace with a flighted wedge or a pitch shot or a chip shot or a scoring shot.
Yep.
I think his differences in his trace, what a great question. I think his differences in the trace would be more attributed to the different shots he tries to hit, even though the equipment is more similar.
Yep.
And there has to be a reaction to the loft, because the loft's not the same.
Right.
So, yeah. What an awesome question. I've never gotten that question.
I know.
Yeah.
Michael Lee asked that question. Michael, thank you. Great
Awesome.
question. You're the big winner for the great question of the night. And we'll actually ask Mike Shy that and get back to you. We'll put that in our notes
There you go.
from the webinar. So thanks. All right, guys.
Cool. Any more questions, or we should go to somebody else?
Probably Siwoo Kim. That is definitely a current member of the Harmon stable here,
Yes, sir.
and just won recently.
Yeah, January of last year.
Okay.
So I don't know too much about exactly this time in particular with Siwoo. What I can tell you is this guy is a Players Champion. He's pretty young still, and he's almost won 2 tournaments this past year, right? So he's on a hot streak, and perfect timing going into the FedEx Cup. I can't tell you in particular what Claude and Siwoo are working on right now. What I can tell you is that when he was here, and maybe in the last few years, I think Siwoo has done a lot of tinkering. And I think what Claude has done is made him a better player. Hitting shots in practice, maybe playing more on the course, hitting those shots, not worrying too much about technique or positions, getting him to be an elite player by relying on that talent that won the Players Championship.
Just to talk about his trace, I mean, I always say I don't like averages. No one fits to an average. Everybody fits within a range. And then here's Siwoo with his fitting right to an average. In my slideshow that I do, webinars or in-person seminars, we always say about 70%. It would be around the correct amount of pressure load to the trail side. At some point in the backswing with an iron, and there he is at 70. And Chip, if you could play it forward a little bit. So it went to 71, and you can see he's still completing his backswing. Again, another hallmark of elite level golf. His center of pressure is moving forward before the completion of the backswing. So in other words, his highest amount of vertical pressure on the trail side happens in the backswing, and then he starts interacting with the ground from a vertical pressure standpoint underneath that lead foot Again, I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. Great players get pressure the lead side sooner than poor players do. And if you're going to do that, you can't wait till the top of your swing to achieve it. Like so many, again, if that advice worked, I'm fine with the advice. But they wait for the top of their swing and then they're going to get forward. And that's not what the best players are doing. That club is now transitioning. It's moved. Can you send them to the very top, Chip, again? So let's say, okay, that club has moved 3-4 inches, maybe. All right, now go ahead. Right. Beautiful and perfect, Chip. Peak velocity right there. And that club's probably moved about 4 or 5 inches in transition. And he's already ramped up that vertical, that lateral. So that will be the fastest he moves towards a target. And that will start to slow down, which will allow him to rotate. The center of pressure right here. Again, club has transitioned 3-4 inches. He's already 70% on his lead side and continuing to move forward. Now he'll get more into the heel. So you've seen the lateral slow down, the ramping up of the rotation, then that starts to dissipate, and then the vertical through impact.
It's amazing.
And it's beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to watch. It's a beautiful trace. It's a beautiful swing to watch. Yeah, it's again, you guys know what you're doing, because not only is this a beautiful swing to watch, but it's a beautiful swing to measure. It measures as crisply as it looks, you know.
But how can amateurs, people like me, what is my swing top to try to get there? Well, how do I get to? It's gorgeous to watch, and the trace is beautiful.
Yeah.
What's our?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Get there faster.
Well, I would say, I'm a TPI guy when it comes to this. There's not a particular swing that you need to model. What we need to do is find your particular model that suits your body, right? So we need to take you through the screens, see how your body works, and then find a model. So let's say you're a specimen, right? You're an athlete.
Oh, she's obviously a specimen.
Right. Right. Then maybe we find you an athletic swing like a Mel Reed, right? And then you measure her up against you, right? And if you're not, let's say you have some injuries or limitations, and maybe we can work around it, but maybe we have to fix it first before we get to a screen or a signature that looks like that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very hesitant to provide one prescription that fits all. So for me, I do not scale. I always screen when I try to find the right swing for you.
And I would say when it comes to technology, I'm asked about certain players, which is fine. I mean, we could have one of your Floridian margaritas here and talk about individual players. But if I'm a golfer, I would want to know what they all do.
Right.
By the way, that list is shorter. And if they all do it, then we all have to do it, or we all have to teach players to do it.
Right.
Again, that's why I talk about pressure in the lead side so much. There's the higher the handicap, the more that they struggle with that. And all these players demonstrate it, albeit in their own way, but they all get pressure in the lead side sooner rather than later.
Right. So maybe if you bring up maybe DJ again.
Really quickly though, you guys mentioned swing banking, and that's super important. Like, I know that a lot of your tour players come in here and they don't want to talk about too much traces, too many data, blah, blah, blah. However, you are capturing their traces when they're playing really well. Can you talk about that swing banking?
Sure. So it was so interesting that can we show the Brooks when he was winning majors, playing absolute his best? So much, so many times great players will tell you, hey, I'm playing good, I don't need to come see you. That's absolutely when they should come see you.
Right.
And that's absolutely when you should measure them. Right. And you don't have to tell, their results indicate you don't need to tell them anything.
Right.
You're just in a data collection mode because you want to keep this. Don't overthink technology, okay? When your player's achieving results, capture them, measure them on everything possible, obviously the V1 pressure map, and then compare it, because inevitably they will reach a point where they're not achieving results, they're not playing well. And all you have to do is compare when they're struggling to when they're playing their best. And that is where your answers lie.
I think for the instructors out there, from a business perspective,
yeah,
you want your top players to come in on certain times of the month that either fit their schedule or fit your schedule, but they are coming regardless of performance, right? You don't want to be the guy who is waiting to fix the player. You want to be the guy who is not only fixing, but also monitoring and also recording and documenting, right? Because I do it all the time with the guys on Corn Ferry or Foreman Tour. I have their kind of baseline perfect motion or data, and I compare it and contrast throughout the season. And once we set those goals, maybe in the off season, where we want to be, we want to stick to that precise movement pattern, positioning the swing, whatever you're working on, from January to the end of Q school, right? And if it changes throughout the season, and it usually does with travel, injury, whatever, we always try to go back to that baseline. So if you do not have that baseline of peak performance, you're always chasing or having the tail wag the dog.
I just think it builds, to your point, it just builds player coach loyalty.
Sure.
No one knows their swing like you do. And this actually, heck, players wander and they get off track and
Sure.
they start working on other things, but they can always come back because, again, you have this and you have this forever.
Right.
So, again, it's a pretty easy sell when you tell them, you were a top with the players you guys work with. You were number one in the world when you did it this way.
Right.
I think it was okay. Maybe we should get back to that.
Correct.
Right. So it just, not only is it make sense from a business model, but it makes sense from a loyalty model in terms of your player trusting you because you have empirical data of what they do when they play their best.
Yep.
Yeah. So you love Trevor Immelman. You said that's your favorite swing. I'm remiss not to pull that up.
I know, we have 7 minutes left. you guys.
Okay,
We
so
gotta
Trevor
see-
and Matthew Wolff. We got to see Matthew Wolff.
Okay.
Real quick.
I
Yeah.
teased that we would see beef, but whatever, we got up to you guys.
All right.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Yeah, you know, Robert.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Now you said this is your favorite golf swing ever.
Trevor is definitely my favorite golf swing of all time. And once again, through the Harmon relationship, I had a privilege to hang out and watch him practice, right? And I can't remember the particular date and time on this one, but I mean, Trevor's about my size, probably 30 more pounds of muscle, and just is perfect. And if you can tell the watchers and listeners, we're a little bit different on our numbers here.
Yes. So this one is maybe what some of you are more accustomed to seeing, where the pressure is actually opposite the face on view. This is his left foot. This is his trail foot, his right foot right there, toes and heels right there. All I'll say about this, and I'll let you talk more about this beautiful swing. If we can rewind him a little bit, Chip. So it locked up a little bit. That's okay. I can talk off the image.
Yep.
So he has what I would call a clockwise pressure load of the trail foot. What that means is he loads a little bit into the foot, breaks with the toe, and then obviously has his rotational depth later, which goes into the heel, and then it goes straight across the crosshairs. There, we're back. So go ahead and send him back, Chip. Oh, okay. That swing was so pretty, it crashed the system. But a clockwise rotational load of the trail foot, basically the pressure goes into the midfoot or maybe the toe, rotates into the heel. This thing's gonna ride the crosshairs all the way into his lead side and then into the heel. This trace is every bit as beautiful as Adam Scott's trace. It really is.
As a,
Your favorite swing
my favorite swing of all time,
outside of looking at on
right?
and looking at that.
Gorgeous.
Right.
And again, he's one of those tour players where you just watch him hit balls, and it's like the same flight every time. It's the same height. It's the same curve. It's just the same, right?
Sounds
Always
boring.
It's pretty boring.
And perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
And perfect. What do you guys do with him? What do you check with this?
He's a friend of mine. He's great friends with Claude. Obviously, he's in the booth now with CBS, but you know,
I've been around him a little bit. He seems to ever be the student. He's still got the player mindset, but he's very curious
still
about
searching.
learning.
Yeah, still searching. I think he works his Como still.
Yeah.
And just a real student of the game, and just a real pleasure to be around.
Could we go to Matthew Wolff?
We can, but really, we have a great question from
Okay.
Jay Perkins. Do senior tour players tend to have similar traces to PGA Tour players, or do they need to make adjustments as they get older?
I've had a few senior guys on the ships, and you probably could not tell if you were comparing tour player versus senior tour player or champions tour player. I would say, in general, you probably would see maybe some limitations in mobility, right?
I would agree with that.
But you're probably still seeing the same, relatively, maybe in between 50 and 55. I would think you're probably still seeing the same speeds they may have had between 40 and 50. In general, right?
Yeah.
You still have that same signature swing. Maybe it's a little bit smaller, maybe it's a little bit slower, but I think it's pretty much still the same signatures we're looking at.
Same guy. Yeah, I would say the only thing I could say is what I've been told and what I've measured. We spend a lot of time with Chip Beck, and he says, should I do the lame Chip Beck impression?
You should do it.
Okay. He
Come
goes,
on,
he goes, Jake, when you get older, you got to load more laterally. And that was certainly the case on the body track. Sorry, Chip. Sorry. And then I worked with Tim Petrovic, who's 54 years old and might be playing the best golf of his life at 54 years old. And I would say we did some, I don't want to call it modern because it's just back in vogue.
Is he still in Austin?
Yes, he is. Yeah. So next time you're there, we'll definitely have to go out to Spanish Oaks and
Sure.
throw balls at Sergio.
Is he playing both tours?
He does. But probably playing the best golf of his life. And I would tell you, I don't want to call this modern because it's back in vogue again. I think we just know more. He definitely was guilty in the 90s of being told to squat his trail side and turn against his lower body. And at 54, he is swinging a little bit freer and a little bit faster because on a V1 pressure mat, we noticed that he didn't get enough pressure into the heel and the backswing. So we just kind of freed that up. And actually, I started allowing his heel. I told him it's okay. I think Jack Nicklaus says it's okay to let your left heel come up off the ground, change some knee flex, tilt his pelvis a little bit more. He went from 27 degrees of pelvic rotation up into we're hoping to get into the 40s, but
I think I'm going to retract a statement I made earlier.
Yeah.
Like it might be smaller or shorter or slower.
Yeah.
I think Mickelson is the exception to the rule.
Absolutely.
Right. So I don't know his particular sequence right now, or his particular trace, but I know he's good friends with Dave Phillips, who's one of my idols for teaching. And I'm pretty sure that they have unlocked his body for maximum potential. And that signature probably looks better today than maybe it did 10 years ago.
Yeah, we just know more. Unfortunately, I always joke in these things that if we were doctors, we would have killed a lot of people, right? We just know more. And again, this is not only the V1 pressure mat for performance, but it's also for health to kind of make golf a game for life again.
Right.
This is a very interesting trace. This is a very interesting swing. Were you there that day for Matthew Wolff?
I was there.
Okay,
Sure.
cool.
So really quickly to my group, to my audience, to all the people, it's 8 o'clock, so thank you for joining us. However, we want you to stay. We're going to look at me, Andrew Johnston, and we're also
Overtime.
going to look at Matt Wolff. So thanks for hanging out. It's too good to end. So we're going to let the guys keep going.
Okay, I've met Matt Wolff maybe a couple of times. He's been here at the Flow. Oklahoma State guy, plays with Ricky, plays with Chris Ventura. He's been here a few times, lives in the area. Great guy to be around, and obviously just a signature swing. His coach, George Gankus, has built a pretty great swing.
And I don't know the whole story. I certainly know George. I think the world of George as a teacher. What he's doing, the results he's getting with players is phenomenal. What I have come to understand is a lot of what Matthew came with to George is what you see, and he knew well enough. And that's really kind of the Harmon family thing, is that to never change a player's DNA.
Right.
So I think a lot of what Matthew did is what he came with to George, and George being such a good teacher, he knew not to change it.
Right.
Interesting things on the trace here. So I get this question a lot, and a lot of you, delve into his teachings and so on, where they're very much about the pelvis moving very rotationally in the swing. But from a load standpoint, he might be trying to be very centered with his pelvic rotation, but he's still loading 76. Do you remember what club this was? It looks like a scoring club, maybe.
Yeah, 7-iron.
7-iron, yeah. So he's loading into this trail side 76% and into his trail heel 62%. So though on the V1 Pro, we could put lines on his pelvis to chart the amount of mass movement he has with his lower body, he's certainly still loading a tremendous amount of pressure, not only to the trail side, but back into the heel. And back into the heel will accommodate that rotation that George is wanting Matthew to have. There you go. There's a box. I thought you were going to do the penguin. There you go. Okay, there you go. Good. So you can kind of chart the mass movement on the video by putting a box or some lines on there. So he may not look like he's doing much, but he's doing a tremendous amount when you look at what he's doing into the floor. And then from there, go ahead and send him forward.
Do you guys like that he's got 100% of his weight in that left toe?
So obviously that means that his heel is up in the air. I don't have a huge problem with it. It is a 7-iron, which is interesting, but you know what? I probably spend most of my day, it depends on your clientele, right? I just spend most of my day encouraging that to happen for the right reasons. So in other words, as a result of the rotation, hey, there's plenty of people at Top Golf going like this, right?
Sure.
And that's picking up your heel, but that's not doing it how
Yeah,
Bobby
but now
Jones
it's not golf, it's not Matt Wolff,
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
right?
So I'm totally okay with it only because it's as a result of his rotation. So his rotation is almost pulling that lead foot up off. And again, that's a lot freer, like you were saying about Phil Mickelson. So no, I'm totally okay with it. And I think it helps with sequencing because you really can stomp that lead heel down and peak the V chart right there. And you can see as he's transitioned the club a foot maybe, he's gone to 72% forward and he's really peaking that V chart. And if you want more potential for speed and you're using a V1 pressure mat, I would really treat the velocity chart like the Richter scale. Try to get that to peak as much because it'll help you decelerate the pivot sooner to impart more club head speed, which what this kid is all about. I mean, he's got so much speed.
So much speed. Quality ball striker. From a coaching perspective, I'm not going to change that, right?
No.
I haven't screened him, but I would love to screen him and see maybe what caused that wrist injury he's been going through. Hopefully it's fully healed, but whether it's repetitive use or something above shoulder, elbow, I'd love to figure out why. So we have as a TPI coach, we're trying to get people to swing with what their body can do, right? So that proves longevity. So if your swing is always breaking your body down, you're going to be out of golf. Right.
Certainly there's overuse injuries, but there's also improper use injuries.
For
so
sure.
it would be interesting to see what's actually causing that. I'm sure his team's on that and well aware of it.
So if Mandy had the exact maybe screen results that Matt Wolff has, she could be a good example of a female model with Matt Wolff's swing.
I've always thought of Mandy as a female model.
Whatever. Certainly not a golf model. That's Kelly.
Let's go to the beef because
Yeah,
you just have a thing for facial hair.
I love it. Let's do it.
Matt Beef from 4 years ago.
Were you here for this?
Yes, I
All right,
was.
cool.
He was here recently as well. Little photo shoot for Cobra Golf. Pretty good stuff, right?
It's actually awesome stuff. I know this
Right.
is a big guy and again,
Again, we're
crazy
kind of-
facial hair, but the trace is beautiful.
Yep.
It is backflip, just so you guys know.
Yep.
And again, it maybe not 100% centered, but this is not in his toes. He's actually loading into his heel on the trail side, and then he's going to stay in this regard above the crosshairs, but for some of you under. So he is another one. You guys, there's something in the water here. He is another one that loads from the trail heel and gets in the lead heel very quickly and doesn't allow that center of pressure to move outward towards the toes, which would only cause him to lose his inclination to the ground and be unable to rotate. And I'll tell you what, not that I certainly haven't coached as many tour players as you guys, but that is a common complaint that you hear from guys that claim to be stuck in from the inside, is that they don't feel like they can rotate through impact as effectively. And then you just need to show them a trace like this, a trace like DJ's, a trace like Emiliano Grillo's. And again, their answers might lie more there. It's a beautiful trace. He's got a great action.
Yep.
He's got great personality. He's got a great beard
He's
too.
a great beard.
Yeah.
Great beard.
He wins for the best beard
Ah,
for sure.
Cool.
there you have it. The beef.
All right. So I'm gonna sit right here and wrap this up.
Oh my.
I know. How about that? Is that okay? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Awesome. So everyone, thanks so much for joining us. These guys are awesome. We got to see some cool traces tonight. If you have any questions, you can email me at mandy.vonc@v1sports.com. I can get you in touch with either of these guys. Chip and Kelly are back there. They say thank you. And yeah, hopefully we'll have some of these model swings available in the software soon. So thank you so much. We love you guys. Thanks for being here, and cheers. Everyone have a great Tuesday, and we'll see you next week.